Good morning and welcome to Cook from the Past and Homestead in the Woods. I am Catherine and it is a dreary, rainy Saturday morning here, but things are going to get a little spicy in the kitchen today because I am going to be joining a chili cook-off tomorrow. And so we've got a lot of things to cook today that I don't usually use in my kitchen, but you know, when you're doing a chili cook-off, you just got to bring your A game. So I'm probably going to end up making this chili a little hotter than I like, but when it comes to chili cook-offs, I think a heat in your chili is really appreciated. So last year, I came in tied for second place with one other person. So this year, it is my goal to come in first and not share the title with anyone. I mean, that's what chili cook-offs are for, right? To have the bragging rights for having the best chili. So because I'm going to be doing it differently this year, I had to bring in an expert to help me with my recipe. And who knows chili cook-offs better than firefighters? So my brother is a retired firefighter. And so I checked in with him to find out if he had an award-winning recipe for chili. So that's what we're going to do today with a few twists of my own. And the last part of this video will be filmed tomorrow after I get home and find out if I won the chili cook-off or not, or got left in the dust again. So stay tuned. We're going to cook this chili in my kitchen today. My husband's going to be my sous chef and taking care of some of those things because there's a lot of steps in it, but I will take you along for the entire cooking of the chili. And we'll do our own taste testing here. My husband loves hot food, and so he'll opine if I need to add a little bit more or this or that. But anyway, I've got a cook in the kitchen with me today, and we're going to get to it and make an award-winning chili. The first thing I'm doing is roasting some poblano peppers. I've got 5 of them in there. I've got 2 jalapenos, and I've got 2 nice big-sized red bell peppers. And I'm roasting them on both sides at 450 degrees until they start to get some black scorching. The recipe that I was given called for 2 white onions chopped up, but I prefer red to use in this type of an application. So I am going to use 1 large red and 1 medium red onion chopped up. So the red onions are cooking in some bacon grease, bacon fat. I cooked bacon this morning, and so I am going ahead and cooking these red onions in the bacon drippings to impart some additional complex flavors to the chili. It's getting a little hot and steamy and eye burning in here between the peppers and the onions, so I've got my fan going here to pull off some of that, so that's probably the background sound that you were hearing. But one of the things I wanted to mention is the most reliable way I have found of chopping up onions so that you don't end up crying all over them is to chill them well first and then get them chopped up quickly, and that seems to work for me. So the onions are cooking, they're almost translucent, so now I'm gonna move them over into my stock pot where I'm going to throw everything after it's ready to go into the pot. And we'll next be tackling those roasted peppers. So the peppers are almost ready to take out of the oven, but in the meantime, I'm mashing up a bunch of garlic. It calls for 6 cloves of garlic. This is garlic that I had left from growing last year. And so they're not the best, but I'm going to use a little extra, and that should make up for it. So I'm going to put those through a mincer, so that will make quick work of it. If you don't have a mincer, you can always use, just to cut it with a knife, but I'm going to put it through the mincer and add it to the pot. All right, the peppers are out of the very hot oven. Again, it was 450 degrees. My sous chef is here assisting with getting the char sort of scraped off and the seeds and veins removed from the insides of them, and then he will be chopping those up in about 1/4 inch pieces and throwing them into the pot where we're already started with our onions and garlic. This is the lineup of meats that I will be cooking. This is 24 ounces, so it's 1.5 pounds of ground pork. The recipe called for just 1 pound, but I'll probably just go ahead and use all of that anyway. Recipe also called for mild Italian sausage links and hot Italian sausage links, and I could not find any of those in my store. So as you see, I've got some ground pork sausage I'm going to use and cook up for the zesty. And then I've got 2 packages of the Italian mild sausage. The recipe calls for 1.5 pounds. Each one of these is 1 pound, so that's 2 pounds. I'll probably just go ahead and toss it all in. So next up, we've got some chuck roast. The recipe called for 2 pounds. This is almost 2.5, and so we're just going to go ahead and use it all. And this is going to be diced up into approximately 1/4-inch diced pieces. That's going to take a little work. We'll probably both work on that. And then I needed some ground beef. I needed just 1 pound of that. This is 2.25 pounds, so I'll be dividing that up and only putting in what is needed. I decided to save about 1/2 pound of this pork for another recipe that I wanted to make some egg roll in the bowl. So I'm just cooking the ground pork first in a little bit of olive oil. I'm cooking this in the same pan that the onions were cooked in, and as soon as this is all cooked up, I'm going to be adding it to the pot. Next, I'm cooking again in the same fry pan as the onions and the pork. I am using the Italian mild sausage, and this is 2 pounds. I'm using the entire thing. And as you can see, I'm using my potato masher to keep it from being in big clumps. So I'm now on to the ground beef. The package was 2.25 pounds. The recipe only requires 1 pound. I was going to put it all in, but I decided to just put half of that. So that is 1 pound plus a little more of 85-15 ground beef. The ground beef is in the pot now, and it's starting to get full. The last ground meat I'm doing is now the zesty hot Bob Evans pork sausage. So I've got the zesty hot Bob Evans sausage all cooked, and it's in the pot, and I've kind of stirred it up here. But my husband just reminded me of when he met Bob Evans.
Okay. Yeah, I signed up for a writer's tour in Ohio when I was doing travel writing and other writing. And the writer's tours where a lot of public relations and Chamber of Commerce's will highlight their features of their county or their city or their area, and they'll invite a bunch of travel writers to tour their areas for free in hopes that they'll write positive and attractive articles for publication that people will then come to their cities or their counties to look at the sites and spend money, of course. And so it was a great way to earn a vacation because these trips were all expenses paid, and there was really no obligation to write about them. Of course you did, though, just to be grateful. And one of the trips was in central Ohio to Bob Evans' farm. So a bunch of us travel writers got off the bus at Bob Evans' farm, walked around, met Bob Evans. He took us around to the stables and to his farm, and we found him to be very pleasant, very earthy, very real person, and it was just a nice trip and a good way to get to know the man behind the franchise that's quite famous. So I could always say that I met Bob Evans down on the farm.
At his house.
At his house.
All right. Right, we're now on to the chuck roast, and we're cutting it into 1/4-inch rectangle squares, just so we have little pieces of meat. And then they go into the pot and get browned. And I'm only doing a little bit at a time because I do want the meat to brown before I put it in the big pot with everything else.
Wait a minute. You're calling me the sous chef, but I'm not Sue. And you're calling this chuck roast, and it ain't Chuck. Who else is coming to this party that's masquerading as somebody else? You got Pa Blano. I don't know who Pa is, but pretty sure that's not his name. Who else is coming?
I got a wise guy in my kitchen with me.
Just shut up and cut the chuck.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Do as you're told. The reason we're doing this meat, small pieces in batches, is because we don't want it to steam, and I may have had a little bit too much in here because you can kind of see it's kind of wet and bubbling, so I'm going to stir it around and just make sure that it continues to cook instead of steam. But that's why you only want to do a little bit at a time. You want it to actually brown. Okay, all of the meat is in. And so in the pot right now is all of the meat, which is quite a bit, and all of the vegetables. So our next Next step is to get in the spices and put this on the heat to start warming up those spices, and then we add in our liquids, and it's going to be steeping probably for most of the day. Well, all of the meat is in the pot, and we've given it a taste, and it tastes very good, but there's virtually no heat to it whatsoever. So I am going to be varying from this recipe some and making sure that there is some heat in this chili to make sure that it's going to be satisfying and definitely an award winner. You just can't have chili without some kind of a heat. So I'm going to go on to adding spices now and some of the liquids that's going into the pot. Okay, here is all of the meat and the vegetables. Everything is cooked. It tastes good. There's a really good underlying flavor, but again, I'm going to have to use some additional spices to increase the heat in this. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pan going. Put a little heat, maybe a medium heat. About a medium heat underneath this, and now I'm going to start working on the spices. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what is going into it, and then I'll add it in. So the recipe calls for a half cup of chili powder. That sounds about right. 1 tablespoon of cumin. 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. 1 teaspoon of oregano. This is Mexican oregano. I'll probably put 2. A teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of paprika, and again, this is the recipe, but that doesn't seem like hardly enough, so I'll probably put a tablespoon of that, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. That really is not enough, and so I'm going to start with 1 teaspoon and then add to it as I need to add to it. It's calling for a half teaspoon of sugar. That almost seems like pointless. And 1 bay leaf, and I'm probably going to put 2 or 3 bay leaves in there. So that's the spices, and I'm going to put them all in here, and I'll start warming up with the meat as it's warming up. And after that, we'll go on and add the liquids. That's 1 teaspoon. That was a little more than half cup of chili powder. This is 1 tablespoon of cumin. And, oops, this is good. 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. Teaspoon of Mexican oregano. I'm going to put 2. Whoops. One teaspoon of sea salt. And this is where it says a half teaspoon of paprika, but that does not sound anywhere near enough, so I'm going to put 1 tablespoon. It seems pointless to put in a half teaspoon of sugar, so I won't. And I'm throwing in 3 bay leaves. Oh, that one's not full. Let me get some full ones here. 1, 2, 3 bay leaves. And a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne does not sound right to me at all. So, especially knowing that this has virtually no heat yet, so I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of cayenne. And I also have some crushed red pepper flakes kind of on the back burner here in case I need some more heat. So this is all just starting to warm up. I'm going to keep this on the burner and let these spices kind of get warm before I start adding the liquids in. So that shouldn't take too long. And when it's time for the tomato sauce and the other tomato products and the beef broth and so on, I will be back. Okay, the meat mixture with the spices is heating up nicely and becoming aromatic. So I'm going to start adding in the liquids now. So it calls for 1 cup of beef broth. This is 2 cups of homemade beef stock. So that's what I have, so that's what I'm going to use. I think it will taste better than the canned beef broth anyway. And these are fire roasted diced tomatoes with green chilies. And these are 10-ounce cans, and I'm going to add 3 of those. And this is a 29-ounce can of tomato sauce. Get all that out of the can. If you have homemade tomato sauce, even better. That is quite thick. So I'm gonna be adding some additional liquids to this now. It's going to need that. I'll be thinking about that for a few minutes. The last thing I'm wanting to add to this is going to be some roasted salsa verde. This is a medium heat, and I have tasted it, and it's every bit of it. So that recipe actually called for 1 cup. I'm just going for it, especially since we know we need some additional heat in here. So I'm going to add the entirety of that. I'm going to fill this with water and add that, and then I'm also going to fill my tomato sauce can with water and add that, and we'll let it simmer for a while and see how that turns out. All right, I filled the salsa jar with water, and yeah, we're still going to need some more liquid because this is going to reduce down while it's simmering. So I'm actually going to add this full can of water from the tomato sauce. This will reduce down as it cooks. So yeah, this is going to be a fairly thick chili. I'm wanting to say I'm going to need some tomato paste in here. I'm going to wait a little while and see how that goes. I may adjust the seasonings, make some more chili powder, some more cumin, I don't know yet. But I just need to let this cook for a while, and we'll give it a taste. Silly me, I forgot a very important addition to this chili. Got 1 bottle of Guinness Stout. That should make all the difference, right? All right, let's let it heat up for a while. So the chili's been on the stove cooking for about an hour now, and it's quite hot now, so I won't be adding more, but I'm wanting a little bit more tomato flavor to it, so I'm putting in 2 6-ounce cans of tomato paste, and I will be stirring that in and coming back probably in about another hour and see how that goes. So I'm guessing between the extra cayenne that I put in here and that green salsa that I added to it, that really kicked it up a notch as far as the heat goes. So I'm happy with that. I think there's enough heat in here so that the real chili enthusiasts who like it hot would be happy with it, but it's not so painful to eat that it would scare away too many others. So I think it's right where it needs to be. And I'm going to let this simmer for a while again and give it another taste. Well, here we go. The chili cook-off is complete, and look here, I did not bring any leftover chili home with me. They ate every single bit of it. Hello friends, well, I just got home from the chili cook-off, and here's my results. There. So, last year I tied for second place. This year, I made second place again, but at least I wasn't tied with someone. So one person fully had the first place, I fully had the second place, and then there was someone else who took third place for the chili cook-off. The person that I tied with last year, who I was really hoping to beat, didn't even end in the top 3. So that worked out well for me. I'm still going to consider that good bragging rights. And so I'm going to be getting on with my day. I did want to tell you there were a couple of changes that I did at the very end to my chili that I didn't include in the video. And so I added another can of tomato paste. So that was a total of 3 cans of tomato paste, and I believe they were 10-ounce cans. And I also added 2 tablespoons of sugar because I wanted to counteract the acid just a little bit. And then I added 1 tablespoon of liquid smoke. So that's the only difference that I made in the recipe after I stopped filming when I was cooking. So I will go ahead and put my recipe down below in the description. And by the way, if you don't see it in the description, look in there kind of at the very bottom, and it says more, and it's kind of light in color, gray, not black like it should be, but it just says more. And if you click on that, that will open up some additional information. So that's the result. I'm happy with it. First place would have been the best, but hey, I'll take what I got. But that's it for today. I do appreciate you joining me for this. And if you happen to make this chili and you win a cook-off with it, I'd certainly love to hear about that. And take care, and I will see you on the next video. Oh, by the way, this video is going to be coming out before my final video where we're boiling the maple sap fully into syrup. We're almost done with that. It's boiled down to a more manageable quantity, and it's in my refrigerator now, so we will be going ahead and finishing that up here pretty soon. And when that video is out, I'm going to go ahead and post it right up here so that you can click on it and go back and find out the rest of the video. So thanks again. I'm very appreciative of you being subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed and you are enjoying the videos, please go ahead and subscribe and hit that thumbs up like button. And I will see you on the next video.